يا رحمن يا
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the program. It's just gone 9 after 8 o'clock. You're tuned into News and Views on Salam Media. Our first guest of the morning is Professor Usuf Chikte. He's with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, and we are going to be looking at what is a historic first. Saudi Arabia's ambassador arrives in Palestine, and it is the first Saudi ambassador to Palestine. His name is Naif bin Bandar al Sudairi. He is set to present his credentials to President Mahmoud Abbas within a few days. So let's understand just how significant is this appointment, and does it bode well? Does it bode well for the relations between Palestine and Saudi Arabia? And are we hoping to see any major changes? Assalamu alaikum to you, Professor Chikte. Welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you for having me here. And I'm delighted to be able to comment on this. I think it's an important and a significant discussion. And let's look at it in terms of a backdrop of what has happened over the last couple of years, both in Saudi Arabia and in the region. To say that Saudi Arabia is normalizing relations with Palestine would be framing it incorrectly. They are using Palestine in order to normalize relations with Israel, or to openly normalize relations with Israel. The current de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, he has a terrible record in terms of human rights and support for the Palestinians. They've restricted and banned imams and other clerics praying for Palestine in the mosque for Al-Aqsa. They've come down very hard on the Palestinians in Saudi Arabia. So this is it on, is it off kind of situation that Israel and Palestine and Saudi Arabia are involved in can be a bit misleading in terms of the press. When we look at what has happened at the United Nations, when recently last week, when the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu brandished a map of Palestine and of the Middle Eastern region, wiping out, erasing any portrayal of Palestine, we get an idea of what they truly mean. It is said that the Saudi Arabian kingdom would normalize relations in preparation, and Biden, the president of the United States, is very keen to put this out and to claim this as in terms of the 2024 US elections that they're going to be involved in. It's going to be very important for them to do that. And they say that Saudi Arabia has put out certain conditions. The conditions are a petitioned Palestine, unlike what the United Emirates and Bahrain have settled for, more concessions from Israel that they will have a Bantustan in the region, and they also want to hype up the nuclear capability into nuclear enrichment, although it is for civilian purposes, and they want to prop up a discredited Palestinian Authority as well. While the Israelis and the settlers are killing the Palestinians, we know that the Palestinian Authority is being in cahoots with the Israeli army and the defense and the occupation forces in arresting and providing the bodies of Palestinian resistors to the Israelis. There is also, of course, a security arrangement between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And there's also, of course, the security arrangements in the monitoring and surveillance of people in Saudi Arabia using Israeli technology. So this is nothing new. If there's anything new in it, it's now even worse. It's in the open. And the one side is trying to extract concessions from the other. The right-wing forces in the Israeli cabinet, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, they wouldn't want to give any concessions around this. So it is something that we mustn't be fooled by, Julie. And I'll stop there, and perhaps we can engage a little bit further on that if you have any questions.
I'm wondering, obviously what you're suggesting is this bodes really very badly as far as the Palestinian people are concerned. And the other issue of deep concern is, as Muslims, as humanitarians, we wonder about the neighbors, the Middle Eastern. When we take that entire bloc, the majority of those countries are predominantly Muslim populated. And yet there seems to be little or no support at all for the Palestinian people. And I kind of wonder, is this all about you scratch my back, I scratch yours, what's in it for me? Or is it about the fear, apart from Iran, is it the fear of the neighbors of Palestine, the Muslim neighbors, that Israel is working on a nuclear program, and if they cross swords with Israel, they'll come off very badly? That's the one issue. And then also trade relations and other such relations, mutual relations which benefit both the Israelis and the other Muslim countries in the region.
Yeah. So I think we must make a distinction. There is enormous support amongst the Arabs in the street, and amongst Muslims in the streets, and amongst people in the street in the Middle East. There's unquestionable support about that. And the dictatorships in the region, the monarchies, the unelected persons who are there at the behest of the United States and given the support and the protection of the United States. We don't have the support. The Palestinians don't have the support of those groups, of those, whether it's Sisi, whether it is the persons in Saudi Arabia, the monarchies, or the dictatorships and the monarchies in the Emirates. But the people, no doubt, as we've seen in the World Cup, as we've seen in the demonstrations, and provide support to the Palestinians. And we have it manifested all over the place. And there are means afoot to suppress that support, as we've seen in Saudi Arabia, amongst the Muslims, amongst the populations in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. There's heavy repressive measures taking place to curb and curtail that kind of support in the form of charities, even in the form of supplications, in the form of prayer. You would be restricted in Saudi Arabia if you openly and nationally pray for Al-Aqsa and pray for the Palestinians. There's a certain way in which you must say it. It isn't as the charities that flowed from Saudi Arabia previously has been restricted, and the Middle East Monitor recently commented on that as well. So that I think we must make that distinction. The other distinction that you say, it is true. The overriding factor here is between the classes of the ruling classes of this kingdom and the enormous wealth that they have, and investing it in Israel and investing it for themselves. And there is a coincidence of interest between between them in terms of the Saudi Arabia now has $1 trillion economy, and the interest of the Zionists in the region in maintaining a form of plundering and pillaging the region of its resources. If we take Syria, for example, Saudi Arabia has been hostile to Syria up till very recently, and very modestly now, in terms of the war that is taking place in Syria. With the aid of Israel, the United States has captured and is an operation of 1/3 of Syria, drawing from its oil wealth in that region. And if you stand up, as was done in Libya and elsewhere, then you taught a big lesson about what will happen to you. So there is definitely the trade relations, as you pointed out. There is already support, but the support is from the population and not from the governments. And we need to change those governments. The populations, they need to change those governments, difficult as it is, in order to secure that the benefits of the wealth of the region trickle down, not trickle, are benefit, the population benefits from the enormous wealth in that region.
Sadly, it's going to take a lot to change those governments, because we know that they have huge Western support, and it's really the Western world that dictates who the rulers of the Middle East, of these countries in the Middle East, will be, because it obviously suits their master plan as well. Armaments, manufacturing of ammunition, selling it on to these countries in the Middle East, so that they can be in constant war with each other and enrich the Western world. But there's so much more to unpack regarding this discussion. Let's go for an ad break, and we'll be back with you in a minute or two.
Thank you.
The comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib black seed. You can find Tib black seed at all leading pharmacies, or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Conveniently located along the banks of the Crocodile River bordering the Kruger National Park, as a guest at Buckler's Africa Lodge, one can enjoy an amazing sunrise or sunset on our spacious deck area while you catch a glimpse of some wildlife sightings along the Crocodile River. The sounds of the African savannah will greet you whilst you enjoy your morning coffee. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Buckler's Africa Lodge is ideally situated only 6 kilometers from the Crocodile Bridge Gate in the Kruger National Park. Catering for all travelers with variety, we have 4 types of the finest rooms: superior rooms, deluxe suites, and 2-bedroomed family units. Each room is equipped with the finest amenities to make your stay unforgettable. Guests can choose between the self-catering option or book their accommodation with breakfast and dinner included. Buckler's Africa Lodge is your ideal location for the ultimate Kruger getaway experience. We specialize in exhilarating and educational game drives in Kruger, tailor-made to suit your family. Inquire about our various accommodation offerings and other activities. Visit www.tingana.co.za for more information. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Experience the pulse of Africa with us.
Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning, or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, now we cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists, with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. 8:25 a.m. News and views on Salam Media, and we are talking with Professor Usuf Chikte. We're looking at the situation in Palestine, the neighboring Muslim countries, the Western world, and how it has its puppets playing to the tune of the Western world. And I guess the big question is, will we ever, inshallah, in our lifetimes, will we ever reach a stage where perhaps this two-state solution will become a reality? And obviously, and the conditions would be pre the 1967 occupation of the illegal occupiers. Professor, welcome back. I commented just before the break, and I have also made another statement regarding the situation of the Palestinian people. Would you like to respond to those comments, please?
Yeah, Julie, one must be careful what one wishes for. The Palestinians, they were browbeaten in after 1967 and after the crushing of the Palestinian resistance in exile. They had the ineluctable option. They had no option but to settle. At that time, the leadership settled for a two-state solution. What is called a two-state solution. The Palestinians, since 1948, used the example of Solomon. That they, if you have a baby, whose baby is it? And Solomon, then there were two mothers claiming it was theirs, and Solomon said, let's cut it up and each one have half. And the real biological mother then said, no, rather you take the baby, but let's not cut it in half. Not take the baby, but settle for at that time, hand over the baby reluctantly and settle for this. Similarly with Palestine, Palestinians never gave up their ancestral native lands. It is theirs, and they want to retain and regain an undivided Palestine, and that is what this is all about. Israel never settled for a partitioned part of Palestine. Israel doesn't have borders. It has never declared its borders. It's expanding all the time, and it's expanded now into Syria with the annexation of the Golan Heights as well. So if you speak about a two-state solution of 1967 borders, you're settling for very little of Palestine. And what about the refugees, the 6 million refugees? So a two-state solution, as many have said, is born dead. It's unimplementable. And Palestinians all over historic Palestine are making the claim, the rightful and legitimate claim, for self-determination in the ancestral land, including the persons in the refugee camps, the 6 million dispersed refugees all over the place. I don't think anybody seriously still calls for a two-state solution, and that is what we must impress on our South African government. When Biden and Western Europe speak of a two-state solution, it's a mirage that they are offering the Palestinians. It won't happen. It can't happen. I mean, what second state are we talking about in the occupied and the annexed lands? And why should the Palestinians forgo the East Jerusalem and Jaffa, and all the other places which were conquered? And I think that is the big battle that is taking place, and that is the myth that that mainstream media and European Union and the United States and the UK are trying to sell us, and we mustn't fall for that kind of dummy. The Palestinians want to be liberated. They want to be liberated. They want to be liberated from Zionism. They want to be liberated from occupation. They want to be liberated from the oppression and the exploitation that they have in the regions, and they want their land back. It's a similar call that we made in South Africa. So I wouldn't agree or go along with a two-state solutions. The Palestinians in the resistance movement and the Palestinian civil society also don't talk about a two-state solution.
So, Professor, why do the Zionists come about with this narrative from supposed biblical times that Palestine was the promised land to the Jewish people or the Zionists? This is the narrative that they push forward all of the time and claim that God has promised them, the Israelis, the Jewish people or the Zionists, has promised them they are the rightful owners of the promised land being Palestine.
Yeah, Julie, the internet was a bit unstable, but the gist of your question is the myths that Israelis and Zionism is creating. Now, in any society all over the ages, in any society based on privilege, the privilege also always sell their position of power on the basis that they have some divine claim, or the kings say that, or the monarchies all over, the queens all over the ages have said that. And that this is the position is divinely bestowed, it's historically bestowed, and therefore they have some entitlement to it. But none of them have sufficient faith in what the myths that they are propagating. They have got such little faith in it that they must enforce it. This occupation, this privilege that they have, the settler colonialism that they implement in the area through a brutal system of law and order, twin violences which they use. Now, when this fails, they know they need to rapidly create in the minds of people these myths that they are entitled to this land. It is dubious whether the current streams of people going into Israel can be classified as Jews as well. The million Russians, Indians coming from all over, from Cochin and other parts of the world. But this is the nature of settler colonialism, that they create and invent these myths, as they've done in South Africa. In South Africa, they also said that, they've come here to civilize the natives, they've come here to save the land, they've come here to rescue on a God-given mission around us. So the narratives between the South African settler colonialism and what's happening in Israel, and indeed the colonialism that has taken place in other parts of the world, is very similar. And I don't think we must buy into these myths, and we must dismantle these myths as we work towards the dismantlement of Israeli occupation, annexation, settler colonialism, and apartheid over there. They say many other things, that it was a land without a people, for a people without a land. That's another myth that they peddle. And increasingly, these myths are being shown for what it is. Now, one of the most recent things that they've said, which has come out in the Israeli archives, is that Israel, the Palestinians fled or left the area voluntarily after 1948. And there are now reports from the Israeli archives, which they try to suppress, to indicate, and which shows that they were kicked out of the areas with the barrel of the gun, with the barrel of the Israeli guns, with the support of British colonialism as well. So the Palestinians, I mean, we don't buy into the idea that the Palestinians are not the rightful owners of the land over millennia in what Palestine, from the river to the sea.
Two more questions before I let you go. The one is regarding Iran. We do know that they have their own nuclear program going, and in the world is pretty cautious in their dealings with Iran. How is this going to play out? What does the current and the future look like? Is MBS and other players in the Middle East going to reach out to Iran? And we also are very aware of the Shia-Sunni divide and how that plays into the politics of that region. So Iran is the one question, and the all-important question, which I always put forward, is why is it so important for the Western world to have such a strong presence of Israelis or Zionists in the Middle East? So if you can respond to those two questions, please.
Yeah, so Iran does have a nuclear program, but Iran, and which is subjected to the international atomic agencies, their program, which they said that they are going to use for civilian purposes. It's open, it's transparent, and they've been tricked into the agreements that they've engaged with the European Union and the United States, where Trump breached those agreements, and they cannot reach an agreement with the United States because every successive administration then changes the rules around that. The question is not, Julie, whether Iran has a nuclear program around that. The question is, which country in the Middle East has nuclear weapons? Do you know that? I mean, that is the elephant. There's not an elephant in the room. Nobody talks about that. Israel is known to have nuclear weapons, and it is not governed by the IAC, and we must demand that the International Atomic Agency. We must demand that those weapons be investigated as they investigate any other country with nuclear weapons. They must be party to the nuclear treaty, which they are not. And so this is a big. Sorry, my image is a bit because of the sun. So the question is, what are we doing about the nuclear threat that Israel poses, and which Israel, in the form of Netanyahu at the recent United Nations, threatened to use? He said Iran must be provided with a nuclear threat around here. So, I mean, what are we talking about if this? We know that that Israel bombed the nuclear facilities that they had in the 1980s in Iraq. Israel, so the butt lies on the other foot. The other question that you asked, just repeat that again, please.
All right, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm still here, Julie.
All right, fine. I can hear you. I'm kind of wondering about the reasons why the West is so intent on having Israel. Is it a watchdog body in the Middle East? And then just to go back to Iran, because all of these politics play out in, creates this dynamic in the Middle East. We do know that Saudi Arabia was at war with Yemen, and Iran supported the Yemenis during that time. I think they have since called a truce of some sort, and MBS is trying to be friends with everyone in the Middle East. We also need to understand why. He has huge plans for the Middle East to modernize it. He's probably in competition with Dubai, wanting to make it the destination, the B2 destination in the world. And they are promoting it to the Westerners in unimaginable ways. What is the rest of the Muslim world's reaction to that? Because it is absolutely steeped from what we read in all forms of modernity, sinful promotions, rock stars, rock concerts, everything else that goes with it. So let's get back to the issue around the reason for the West wanting this huge presence of Israel in the Middle East. Does that mean it's all about making money out of all of the armaments that they then provide to all the warring countries in the Middle East and around the world? The Iran Saudi Arabian relationships, how that impacts on the region, and MBS's plans for the future. I worry about it. Imagine the most sanctified sites for us as Muslims, Makkah and Medina. On the doorstep of Makkah and Medina, we have all of this sinful activities that are going to be playing out, or probably already playing out.
Yeah. The why Israel was established in the first place. Many historians, commentators, and political fundis have said that Israel serves as a garrison state. A garrison, it's a military site for where arms are held, and which supplies then these arms. We've seen now in Ukraine, where in the Iraq War as well, where we had the rapid transfer of weaponry to these places from Israel, because Israel is used as a garrison state in the region. That's number one. Number two, the reason why it's kept as a garrison state, when the British imposed the idea of a state of Israel in the region, one of the officials said, we need to have a loyal Ulster in the region, in the sea of hostile Arabism.
Okay, Professor Chikte, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I didn't realize that my next guest has been standing by for the past 10 minutes. So I really have to leave it there. But I so look forward to picking up from where we leave off here today, sometime soon, to carry on this most in-depth and interesting discussion regarding Palestine and the illegal occupiers in Palestine. And that, of course, is Israel. So please forgive me for that. We will talk again sometime soon. It was wonderful chatting with you this morning. Keep us in your du'as, inshallah.
Thank you.
It is exactly 8:43. News and views on Salam Media. Standing by to talk to us is Dr. Faisal Suleiman. We are going to be looking at the water crisis in KZN. So please do stay with us.